Did it go off?
Yes. Good morning. Welcome back from the snow day. They say we have another weather incident moving in this weekend, and we're saying that's not fair on the weekend. So what we're going to do today, we finished Chapter 4. We're going to be starting Chapter 3. Before we get to Chapter 3, just a reminder about what's due this weekend. Slide, it'll get here. So what's due this weekend, we have an attendance quiz 8 that will be available beginning, do you want to switch cameras? We have a attendance quiz 8 that is available before 5 today, sometime before 5. Chapter 4 homework. Chapter 4 homework, very, very short this week. And I would also encourage you, if you can, to start the Chapter 3 homework. The Chapter 3 is not due. We'll do some of the Chapter 3 stuff today because Chapter 3 is more lengthy. And then Sunday video quiz 9 over Chapter 3 is due. Now, just a note, Blackboard Collaborate did one little update this morning before class. I was holding my breath that everything would work. Now, they're doing a pretty big update to Collaborate Saturday night into Sunday morning. And it looks like they're going to improve a lot of the performance, like the lag that I have to wait for PowerPoint. That should go away. So if you are using Collaborate to attend class, you need to sign on a little bit earlier on Tuesday because you'll have to download, there's an 8 megabyte update file that's going to come out. So just be aware of that. Also, if you're not a risk taker, I would make sure that I had done whatever I needed with Blackboard before 11 p.m. on Saturday. They say it will not impact Blackboard, but you never know. So just, I would kind of, in my own mind, they tell me it's not going to impact Blackboard, but I always think I'll see it when I believe it. So around 11 o'clock Saturday night, they are going to start updating Collaborate. Okay. So with that, I'm going to talk about Exam 1 now. So Exam 1 is coming up, and we're going to talk about, and I apologize, I'm going to have the same talk every day. I'm going to do it today, I'm going to do it Tuesday, and I'm going to do it Thursday because this stuff's really important to understand. I've put exam information on Blackboard. So first of all, everything I say is in a document on Blackboard. But I do want to go over it. So Exam 1 runs Tuesday, February 18th, 9 a.m. through Thursday, February 20th, 9 p.m. Okay, some things about that. I put 9 a.m. here as a starting time. The lab manager will proctor exams beginning at 8. So if you're an early morning person and you want to get in there, she is there at 8. So sometimes you'll see proctor hours starting at 8, sometimes 9. 9 is the official start time. I do know you can start as early as 8. Now, Thursday, February 20th, your exam must be completed by 9 p.m. You cannot start the exam any later than 8. And I'm going to talk, we have 2 sets of exam takers in here. You're all taking the same exam, just the way it's proctored is a little bit different. So I'm going to talk about, I'm first going to talk about Sections 1 and 2. So Sections 1 or 2, if you go on Flashline, you are enrolled in Sections 1 or 2. You will take the exam in the proctored lab. That's on the 2nd floor of the College of Business. It's open 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. This is proctoring. The computer lab itself is open different hours. But for proctoring, we go 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Again, they will let you take an exam as early as 8 a.m. So unofficial, 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. When you take the exam in the lab, you have to start the exam by 8 p.m. They will not let you start the exam if you're in there at 8:01. You have to start it by 8 p.m. Now, your exam will automatically close at 9 p.m. Eastern Time on Thursday. Does not matter if for some reason you started at 8:55 p.m., which they shouldn't allow you to do, but if you start at 8:55 p.m., it's over at 9 p.m. sharp. It's going to be done. So just know that. The lab has hundreds of students taking the exam in the lab. This is the downside of the lab. If you wait until the last minute, there is absolutely no guarantee that you will be able to take the exam. The computer lab has up to 72 computers to be used. You figure on our exam you have up to 2 hours. It will cut you off after 2 hours, but you have up to 2 hours. The average student on exam 1 takes about 45 minutes, okay? So you figure average-wise we can churn through a lot of people, but not if everyone waits until Thursday afternoon. Thursday afternoon tends to be a peak time. Thursday evening, certainly. We have had lines down to this room from the computer lab. So, you know, down the complete other side of the building, we've had a line that long. I'm just telling you there are no appointments in the computer lab. This is the downfall of taking the exam in the computer lab. If you want to take your exam first thing in the morning, chances are you're not going to have a line. Mornings tend to be a lot more open. If you want to take it Tuesday, that's a lot less busy than Thursday. So that's totally up to you, but know that if you wait until Thursday afternoon and something goes wrong, you're out of luck. Let's say you're driving along Thursday and your car runs out of gas, and you email me Thursday night and say, I couldn't take the exam because my car ran out of gas. You will not be able to take the exam. So if it were me, this is part of that managing risk. Plan to take the exam Tuesday or Wednesday, so then you have a backup day if something goes wrong. You have to take it, you have to be done with it by Thursday at 9 p.m. So sections 1 or 2, you're going in the lab, and you have to start it by 8 p.m. Now, okay, so let's switch over now to sections 5 or 6. If you're in sections 5 or 6, you will take the exam using ProctorU. These are not interchangeable, by the way. If you're in section 1 or 2, your exam will only work in the lab. If you're in section 5 or 6, your exam will not work in the lab. You can only take it with ProctorU. Okay, so know that you need to know your section. If you're on Blackboard and you click on exam information, it will release the exam information to you based on your section. So when you're in Blackboard, it'll tell you if you're taking it in the lab or in ProctorU. So you do want to take a look at that. I will also be emailing you within the next week about your exam location as well. So if you're taking the exam online with ProctorU, so you're in sections 5 or 6, what you need to do is you need to make an appointment with ProctorU to take your exam. And you can do that, you have to do that at least 72 hours in advance. You can make your appointment right now for all 3 exams in this class. They're taking appointments for the rest of the semester. Know that if you wait, if you don't make your appointment, if you don't make an appointment at least 72 hours in advance, they'll charge you a convenience fee to take it on demand, like $5 or something. So it's not devastating, but it's certainly money you don't need to spend if you plan ahead. So you make an appointment with ProctorU, and they are not going to accept any appointments, I think, after 5 p.m. on Thursday. I can't remember the exact cutoff on the appointments, but if you go online, you'll on Blackboard there's links, and you can schedule your appointment online. If you can't do that or it's closer to the time, you need to call ProctorU, and you can also do it over the phone. But they'll have times listed. They do have times fill up. So your best bet, if you're taking it online, is to pick your time now. It's my understanding that most of the time they are 24 hours a day, so you can choose when you take your exam between 8 a.m. on Tuesday and then the last appointment on Thursday. The reason we cut it off, you can't make an appointment for 8 p.m. Thursday night, is because if you wait that long, there invariably will be something that trips you up. So if you're using ProctorU, you can't make an appointment that late. So you just take a look at your calendar, look at the available times, and pick something that works for you. ProctorU works very well. If you're using ProctorU, there is a link where you test your equipment ahead of time, and you do want to do that before the day of your exam. So that's just kind of a heads up about scheduling the exam. Okay, so again, when we're talking about scheduling exams. There are no appointments for the computer lab. If you're in section 1 or 2, you'll show up. It is pretty fast to get in there if you go early in the morning. Tuesday and Wednesday generally there isn't a wait. I'd say the danger times are Thursday starting at 1 or 2 the rest of the day, because we're not the only people taking exams in the lab. And I will also say that Brian and I do proctoring in the computer lab. We're around sometimes. Know that when we're there, we are there as proctors. We're proctoring for all classes. Everyone that has exams in the computer lab does stints of proctoring. We're there to proctor. We will not be able to answer questions during your exam because that wouldn't be fair to other people that take it during other times or with proctor you. So we'll smile at you and nod at you, but we're not answering class questions in the during that. So again, in terms of knowing the details about the exam, I would urge you to check Blackboard because all this exam information is on Blackboard. Okay, now for your exam. So, and again, all the stuff is on Blackboard. I look at the sheet. But again, just to tell you, you may use, I've talked in class about this, you may use one sheet of paper during the exam. And the lab has scratch paper for you, and the lab has a calculator for you. I'll talk about that later. But you can have one sheet of paper, whether you're taking the exam on ProctorU or whether you're taking it in person. You are allowed to use one sheet of paper. It is 8.5 by 11 inches. It is one physical sheet of paper, period. You can write on it. You can type on it. You can draw with highlighters on it. You have to be able to read it with the naked eye. You cannot use magnifying glasses. You cannot, this is really important, you cannot bring two pieces of paper in with writing on one side. That is not equivalent to one piece of paper. A lot of times people will say, my computer doesn't print double-sided. Well, what you do to do that is you print one page on your paper, then you flip your paper over, put it back in your printer, and print page 2 if you want to do that, or you can handwrite. Guaranteed, if you bring in two pieces of paper, the proctors are going to ask you which one you want to use, so you would lose half your notes. If you are caught in an exam situation, because it's not the proctor's responsibility to catch you before you do this. If you are caught with two pieces of paper, you get an automatic 0. The proctor will not stop you from taking the exam. That's not there. The proctor is not there as a bouncer. The proctor is there as another set of eyes. So what the proctor will do is the proctor will report you to me, and then your exam score will turn into a 0. And I am bound by university policy that I have to report you as an incident of cheating. Okay? And I don't want that to happen to anyone. So this is very simple in terms of not having that happen. One sheet of paper, and I'm just trying to think about all the emails I get. I always get a lot of emails about, can I highlight on it? What color can it be? I don't care. It's one sheet of paper, readable to the naked eye, or with your glasses, and but one piece of paper. You cannot staple two pieces of paper together. You cannot tape two pieces of paper together. 1 year, you know those advent calendars where you flip the little windows, you know, the pages flip over? 1 year someone brought one piece of paper but had all these little flaps on it. It looked like a advent calendar. That is cheating as well. That is not one sheet of paper. One flat sheet of paper. I cannot emphasize enough. Every semester I end up having to report people, and I hate to do that because that goes on your record and then it's ugly, and so don't do this. So just one piece of paper. You'll see during class I'll mention things that I would put on my sheet, but what you put on your sheet is totally up to you. And it doesn't matter if you're using ProctorU or taking a lab, you get the one sheet of paper. The blank scratch paper will be provided for you if you're in sections 1 or 2. If you're taking it at home, you will be able to use blank scratch paper, but you need to have blank paper ahead of time. You'll be showing it to ProctorU because they have a webcam. And then calculators. If you're taking your exam in the computer lab, you can use the computer lab calculator. It's a plain calculator. You cannot use your own calculator. If you're taking it with ProctorU, you can use a plain calculator. So that means one without a memory, that's not programmable, so not a TI-83. You cannot use your phone as a calculator no matter how you take it. That again, we'll talk about your phone in just a minute. Okay, so the piece of paper, so that's the first thing that we need to be clear on. You can use the one sheet of paper, front and back, one physical sheet of paper. Cannot emphasize enough that it's one sheet of paper. Next, the other thing that trips people up. I know you're attached to your phone. I'm attached to my phone too. I get it. But during an exam, you have to put your phone away. The best case would be to leave it somewhere, but that's not really realistic. So when you go into that exam, whether you're taking it at home with ProctorU or you're in the lab, when you take that exam, that phone has to be silenced and it has to be out of sight. Both those things have to occur for the entire length of your exam. If your phone is visible for any reason, that's an automatic 0 on the exam. Okay? And again, keep in mind, ProctorU, you're being videoed. If you're in the lab, there are cameras videotaping everything that's going on as well. If the phone is visible for any reason, it is a 0 on your exam. I will not negotiate. And I don't care what you're using it for. This is the policy. Your phone cannot be visible. So it doesn't mean it can be sitting on the table next to you. It means it needs to be out of sight and also not heard. And a lot of times what we'll hear, and again, this is something, I did make it one entire semester with no one violating this. Last semester we had one. But we'll have people say, well, I was just answering my buddy because he kept texting me. No. No, you're not texting during exam. You're not checking your email. I don't judge what you're doing. You cannot have your phone visible. Put your phone away, period. Okay? I will not negotiate that. I'm not debating with you about what you're doing. You cannot show your phone. And so those are two very easy rules, very ironclad rules. Don't violate them. You need to disconnect for the hour of the exam or whatever it takes you to take the exam. So do not use your phone. I don't have a slide on this, but if you're registered with Student Accessibility Services, you can and should take your exam in the Student Accessibility Office. You make your appointment with them. So just know that I'm expecting you to do that. If you're registered with SAS, using ProctorU is usually not an option, so you need to take your exam with SAS. So where are we going next? Okay, exam content. So those are the two. Oh, and when you're in the lab, of course, don't talk to other people. If you're taking your exam with ProctorU, don't talk to other people. Exam content. Your exam is in My Accounting Lab. Okay, so it's going to look and feel very familiar to you. It is a mixture of multiple choice questions and exercises. By exercises, I mean the exact exercises that you have on homework and that we do in class. Okay, so if you can do them then, it's going to look and feel very, very familiar. How many of each kind of question? That's in the document on Blackboard. On Blackboard, I put an exam info document, and it will tell you approximately how many of each. And I don't memorize those numbers off the top of my head. We'll talk about study plan in a minute, and this exam is chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4 in their entirety. Okay. Okay. Make sure, I've got a document up on Blackboard called Exam Rules. Make sure you know those rules and that you don't violate them. I pointed out the two biggies. The two biggies are one sheet of paper and not having your phone visible. Those are generally, and of course, I mean there's other things like you can't talk to people. If you're taking the exam in the computer lab, you can't just get up and walk out. Even if you have to use the restroom, you need to contact the proctor. You can't just leave. Another thing, if you're taking the exam with ProctorU, obviously ProctorU is in a window on your computer, so they're sitting there. Do not disconnect from ProctorU until you submit your exam. The best thing for you to do is take your exam. If you want to hide that window and not look at them, that's fine. But the best thing for you to do is get done with your exam, then pull up the window, talk to your proctor, and say, I'm going to submit my exam now. So submit the exam, and then get verification from the proctor that it's okay to close their window. Okay? You cannot take the exam if you close ProctorU and you're still taking the exam, that's going to result in a 0. So you need to make sure. ProctorU, very, very user-friendly. If something happens during the exam, you have a phone number. You can actually talk to your proctor. So it's not wrestling with technology. You have a person there to deal with. But talk to your person during your exam if there's any question at all. Okay. Now, study plan. I posted under exam info on Blackboard, I posted both a document and a little video. So if you want to read it, you can read it, or you can watch the video. They are the same information. Study plan is one of the best ways to prepare for the exam. Study plan is in my accounting lab. The best way to learn accounting is through practicing it. We can come to class and everything will make sense, and then 2 days from now, it'll be like, what do I do? So, and it's a lot more cryptic. So the more familiarity you have with it, the better it becomes. And it's not just not looking at it. A lot of times people will review their notes and say, oh, that makes sense to me. But then when they come to do it on the exam, they can't replicate that. So study plan, let me tell you what study plan is. Study plan is an awesome tool. Study plan allows me to put actual questions from your exam in study plan. So you have multiple choice. Some of those multiple choice will show up on your exam. And exercises. So the homework exercises are in study plan, and that's where I'm pulling the exercises on the exam from. So for right now, I will tell you, I told you on your exam you have exercises. Those exercises come from the homework, but I've narrowed that down a little bit in study plan so that I will tell you right now, every exercise that's on your exam is in study plan. So you can practice everything. So if you have missed a chapter of homework for whatever reason or didn't do so well, it's in there. This is where you can do it. Even if you've done it, it's time to do it again. So study plan allows you to practice. So every exercise is in study plan. Some of the multiple choice questions are in study plan as well. And I do want to point out, go into Blackboard, go into exam info. There's a link on the left navigation menu called exam info, and you will see the study plan, how to use study plan. When you click on, and you might say, well, I can just go into my accounting lab and click on a study plan button, and that's true. But study plan, when it pops up in this where you can say, quiz me. And you go, oh, that's what I'll do. What it's doing is it's pulling random items out of the pool for you to work on, which is fine, but a much more methodical way to make sure you've covered everything that's on the exam is to do what I show you in that little video or in that handout. If you click View All Chapters, then you'll be into all chapters and will have access to all of it. Otherwise, if you do Quiz Me, it's just going to bring stuff up at random. This way you can methodically go through all the learning objectives. Okay, some actual exam items are in study plan. Again, many of them. All the exercises are in study plan. So if it's in study plan, it's fair game on the exam. Then I would say a lot of the multiple choice on the exam come from the exercises in study plan as well, and then some of the multiple choice on the exam come from study plan. So study plan is an excellent tool for preparing for the exam. And I did put a PDF and a video about, and it's only like a minute long, about how to find study plan and how to find the content so you get everything. Okay, this review sheet, it's typically not on Blackboard. This is your reward for coming to class in many cases. The review sheet is found at tiny.cc/exam1review. It's a PDF. What this PDF is it's a outline of the content, and it will allow you, it's a few pages long, but it'll give you topics to make sure you focus on. This is not a list of the formulas. It's not a list of what should be on your sheet. Part of the learning process is deciding what needs to go on that sheet. So you need to construct that yourself. So tiny.cc/exam1review, is this absolutely necessary? No, but it is an outline of the content, and it pretty much hits on the topic of every exercise and every multiple choice that's potentially on your exam. Okay, and there's your reward here for today. Okay, okay, so I'm going to leave that up for a minute. Okay, so that's what I have about the exam. Does anyone have questions, specific questions? Do you have any? Nope. Crickets? Okay, great. Okay, okay, so, yeah. Okay, so, and by the way, the week of the exam, well, we have Chapter 3 next week. Okay, so I'm talking about the next week, February 18th, 19th, and 20th. That week we do not have class. Your responsibility that week is to take the exam. And you should be starting study plan now for the exam. Do not wait till the day before. This, we've already seen it. I just wanted to put it up as a refresher, just to remind you that debit credit handout is really helpful in answering many questions. Okay. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we are going to switch, since we don't have any questions about the exam, we're going to switch the content today. Okay. We would have done, we finished Chapter 4. So I don't, I have no plans to do anything else in Chapter 4. Okay. Brian. Okay, now Chapter 3. Chapter 2 is a huge fundamental chapter. Chapter 1 also. Chapter 2 I'd say is tied for number 1. So the other huge one, Chapter 3. Chapter 3 is going to feel a little weird too. It's going to feel like, ooh, this is kind of like a foreign language. So what I'm doing right now, most of you have not watched the Chapter 3 videos, which is fine. So you're going to see a little bit here of the previous. So you'll see a little bit of this. A little bit will overlap with the video Sunday, but I want to be able to introduce the chapter here. So Chapter 3 is about something called accrual accounting. Accrual accounting is contrasted to cash basis accounting. So to even start talking about what that means is we're going to go through this little example. And I'm not a very good artist, but I drew this. So let's say in May, okay, we have a lawn mowing business. So we have a lawnmower guy. And in May, a customer pays the lawnmower guy $600. So this is in May, paying the customer $600 to mow the lawn from June, July, and August. Okay, so lawnmower guy gets $600 in hand in May. In June, lawnmower guy mows and has to pay $50 for mower rental. And in July, lawnmower guy mows and has to pay $50 for mower rental. And in August, we have to pay $50 in lawnmower rental. So we're looking at this example from the lawnmower guy's standpoint. So he has a business and he gets $600 in May and then actually mows June, July, and August. So we're going to compare the cash basis accounting with accrual basis. So we have a calendar here, and what we will see is in May, if we're doing cash basis accounting, which is which is the one that feels right at first, but we'll say why it's not right. If we're doing cash basis accounting, we will have $600 of revenue in May. We will have $50 of expense in June, $50 of expense in July, and $50 in August. Okay? Cash basis accounting. The rule of cash basis accounting is that you only make an entry, you only recognize anything when cash is involved. So if cash is involved, you do it. If there's no cash, you don't record it. Okay, so in that case, under cash basis accounting, what we're going to see for this is May will have net income of $600. June will have a net loss of $50. July will have a net loss of $50. I'm going to refer them not to Blackboard Help, but I'll take a look at that after class. So if the exam, I'm sorry, I had to jump in on that one. If the exam info is unavailable for you, it's probably unavailable for everyone. So I just have to fix the setting in it. So, but I'm not out of class available to do that until 12:30. So it'll come available sometime today or this evening. Okay, so sometime today or this evening. So don't contact Blackboard Help about that. That's me. That's my fault. So, okay, so cash basis accounting, so that's what's important. Cash basis accounting, we only record when cash is involved. So we have net income of $600 in May. Now when we think about that, it doesn't really make sense. When I look at that, did I do anything to earn money in May other than sell it? But I didn't do it. I haven't performed the service. If I don't mow, if I'm the lawnmower guy, if I don't mow the lawns in June, July, and August, I have to give that money back. That money is not mine to keep. So under cash basis accounting, the month that we don't do anything, we have revenue. And then the 3 months where I actually do work and I mow lawns, I'm going to show a loss. And that just feels wrong. That's not what's happening. Okay. So what we do with accrual accounting then is we're going to step back here. So with accrual accounting, what we're going to do is we're going to take those same facts, and what we're going to do is we're going to take the $600 revenue and we're going to push the revenue to each of the months where I'm actually earning it. So I'm going to push $200, a third of it, to June. I'm going to push a third of it to July, and I'm going to push a third of it to August. So all I'm doing is taking 600 divided by the 3 months of work that I'm doing, getting 200 for each month. I'm going to subtract the expenses that I incur in each month. Okay, so in each month I'm going to have $150 in net income. So I'm going to show nothing in May, 0 in May, because I really didn't do anything to earn the money in May. But then in June, July, and August, I'm going to show net income. And when we look at this from this standpoint, it makes sense. This makes more sense than the cash basis where we showed $600 of revenue in May, and then we showed that we were losing money in June, July, and August. If I'm looking at cash basis accounting, I'm going to make some bad decisions. Accrual accounting says, let's recognize things when they're actually when they're actually earned, or when they're expensed, when they're actually incurred. That $600, yeah, you don't have to have a signed contract here. We're just talking about he earned $600 in May. Doesn't necessarily need a signed contract, but the facts are that he needs to perform those services in June, July, and August. So what we've got here, the $600 back up in May under accrual basis accounting, that $600 is something that's known as unearned revenue. Okay, unearned revenue, write that down. Unearned revenue, because this is one of the biggest misnomers in accounting, this account, unearned revenue. And this is one of those things that's going to haunt you the whole semester. Unearned revenue. I would walk around and ask what kind of account you think it is. No. Unearned revenue, write this down, is a liability. Unearned revenue is a liability. It's a liability because we have not earned that revenue yet. So, but we owe the money. If Lawnmower Guy takes $600 in May and doesn't ever do any work, he's liable for the $600. Okay, so he doesn't have that $600 free and clear until he earns the money, until he performs the service. So the account unearned revenue is a liability. It's one of the few accounts that looks different than what it is. Unearned revenue is not a revenue account. It is a liability. It's telling us that, that we have not yet performed those services. What we're going to do now is we're going to do an exercise. We are going to do short exercise 3-1. And this is another way for us to go through and sort through the difference, figure out net income and expenses. And this is accrual basis. Again, when you watch the videos, we're just scratching the surface of it today. But we're going to start with this exercise, and we're going to actually be calculating net income on an accrual basis. With Lawnmower Guy, when we took the $600 and put $200 in June, $200 in July, and $200 in August, and calculated income that way, that was accrual basis accounting. So that's calculating net income. Accrual basis accounting is the only accounting method acceptable for 99.9% of businesses. The only people that can use cash basis accounting are very, very small sole proprietorships, and as individuals we're cash basis. So as an individual, I don't use accrual accounting. My W-2 for the year is actually the income I received that year. Okay, so individuals use cash basis accounting for taxes, but businesses have to use accrual accounting. So this exercise, we're given a lot of information, but I'm going to go to the requirements first. And it says, first of all, how much was Western's net income for 2012, and then B, how much was their cash balance at the end of 2012. So the first thing I would do, I'm a very visual person, I'm going to write down the formula for net income. Net income, if we think about, we've done this before. Net income is revenues minus expenses. Okay, so revenues minus expenses. So many times when you're approaching these problems, the thing to do is get something down that relates to this. So when I'm being asked for net income, it helps if I know net income is revenues minus expenses. So now I'm going to go back through the writing in the problem, and I'm going to look for sales revenues. Because remember, revenues can be sales, sales revenue, and that first sentence where it says they made sales of $850 million. So my sales revenue is $850 million. Now I'm going to keep reading, and I'm looking for an expense. So of this amount, they collected cash for all the $27 million. It doesn't, collecting cash has no impact on revenue. It has no impact on expense because cash bases only do you worry about how much cash you have. The only time we're concerned about what's in cash and what's not in cash is when we're calculating cash, which is Part B. But right now for Part A, we're looking for revenue that was actually earned and we're looking for expenses that were incurred. So I'm going on to the next sentence. The company's cost of goods sold was $290 million. Cost of goods sold is probably the other one that's hard to see. It doesn't say expense on it, but cost of goods sold is usually the biggest expense a company will have. So that is expense. So cost of goods sold was $290. I'm just putting brackets around this just so I remember to subtract it out. When you're doing the homework, because this is not carved in stone if you put brackets around it or not, what I would do is when I'm doing this homework problem, I'm just going to click on the Help Me Solve This and just see if they want brackets around these numbers or not. I do not remember because there's not a carved in stone convention on this particular one. Okay, so then the next, keep reading. All other expenses for the year totaled $325 million. So I'm going to subtract that $325 million as well. Okay. And then also they paid for inventory and something. That, when it says they paid, that says they paid cash is what's the implication there. So that's a cash find, so I don't need it for Part A. It tells us beginning cash was $75 million. So I am pretty much done with Part A, so all I need to do now is take my sales revenue, subtract my cost of goods sold expense, subtract all other expenses, and I will get net income of $235. So this is just asking me to calculate what my net income was. Okay? And this is on the accrual basis. So notice I didn't use the numbers about cash because cash is not going to impact net income. Cash is an asset. That's Part A. Now, Part B. Part B says how much was their cash balance at the end of the year. So now it's specifically asking us how much cash we have at the end of the year. The first thing we do for the cash balance is we start with the beginning cash. And basically, I'm giving you a formula here, but if we start with our beginning cash, we add what we got, the cash we collected, we subtract the payments we made. That'll give us ending cash, which seems intuitively to make sense. Okay, so really that's a formula I wrote up there, but if you think about yourself, how do you figure out how much cash you have at the end of the period? You'd have what you started with, what cash you brought in, less what you paid out gives you what you have at the end. That's all that's saying. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back through the problem, and the first thing, my beginning cash balance, it tells me in that sentence, second from the end sentence, beginning cash was $75 million. So I have $75 million as my beginning cash. Then my next item I'm going to put is I'm going to add what I collected. So I look up above, and what I collected, it says in the second sentence, of this amount, of the $850 million, they collected cash for all but $27 million. So we actually have to do a calculation for this one. We have to take the $850 million total sales, subtract the 27 that wasn't cash, and we end up with cash collected of 823. Okay? So we just have to convert the numbers they're giving us into cash. Just kind of back into it. Next, I want to subtract what the payments I made. The payments I made, reading down through here, I'm going to the sentence that says, also during 2012, Western paid $380 million for its inventory and $255 million for everything else. So those are my cash lines. It's saying I paid. How do I pay? I pay with cash. So incurring an expense and paying are two different things. So I paid for inventory of $380. I paid for everything else of $255. So what I end up with is ending cash of $263. Now, this is the general rule when we're talking about accrual accounting, which every company uses. Accrual accounting is what we'll be using the rest of the semester, unless specifically in this chapter we'll look at some cash basis just to look at the difference. But we use accrual accounting, and the principle behind accrual accounting is that revenue is revenue. It's recognized when we earn it, not when we get the cash. So if we perform the service, we recognize revenue. It's divorced from when we actually get the cash. The cash is another discussion. And then expenses are expensed or recognized when we incur the expense, not when we pay the cash. For example, if we had an electric utility bill for December, we used electricity in December. Say our electric bill was $1,000. We're going to recognize $1,000 of expense for electricity in December, even though we don't pay the bill until January. So we recognize expenses when we incur them, we recognize revenue when earned, and it's separated from the actual cash. We still record the cash, but that affects the cash account. Okay, so now we're going to have a question related to this. I'm going to go around and collect answers for this one. Okay, an expense incurred in 2011 is not paid until 2012. Using the accrual basis of accounting, the expense should appear where? The 2011 income statement, the 2012 income statement, neither one, or both. What do you think? B? A? Okay. What do you think? A. A? Okay. What do you think? B? B? Okay. Over there. B? A? A? D? A. Wow, we have a lot of different answers. What do you have, Brian? 17 B's and a bunch of A's? Yeah. Okay. Okay. The answer here is A, the 2011 income statement. We always recognize expenses when occurred, not when paid. Now when we pay the bill, so what's going to happen, let's talk about this. So if I incur, let's go back to my electric utility bill. What I'm going to do in 2011, I know I have a $1,000 bill. I've used electricity for December, but I'm not going to pay it until January. So what I'm going to do is in December, I'm going to write a journal entry, and I'm going to be debiting my utility expense because I'm increasing expense, and then I'm going to credit a liability. That's going to be accounts payable because I have a liability. I owe this electric because I used it already. So that's what's in the 2011. I'm going to have the expense. The expense shows up on the income statement, and I'm going to have a liability that shows up on the balance sheet. So then when I pay it in 2012, what I'm going to do is I'm going to reduce my liability. So I'm going to debit the liability, accounts payable, and I'm going to credit cash. So I'm going to reduce cash. But expense is only incurred in 2011 when we incurred it, not necessarily when we paid it. And we are going to spend 2 more class days on Chapter 3 because it is a pretty big deal. And it does feel very different than what we're used to. What we're going to do now is we're going to do another homework exercise. And this again is doing cash basis and accrual basis. So we're going to take the same set of facts, see what it would be. Net income would be under cash basis and then under accrual basis. I'm skipping to the requirement. It says compute the net income under both bases of accounting. So we have cash basis, accrual basis. What I did down below is I set up the little table, and that would be probably useful to set up the table because we're going to be filling it in for this exercise. So that table that I've written before where I have a column for cash basis, a column for accrual basis, I'll have revenues minus expenses equals net income. So again, that's how I get net income, revenues minus expenses. So I'll pause for a minute. Part A, we want to show what they'll report on their 2012 income statement under cash basis. So cash basis, the only revenue we recognize is cash. And the only expenses we recognize are when we pay in cash. So reading through our set of facts, we have during 2012 they earned revenues of $530 on account. Is there any cash involved in that at all? No, we earned revenues on account. That's none. That's no cash. Kendra collected $540 from customers during the year. So that collected $540, that's our cash revenue because we base it on the actual cash. When it says we collected, what did we collect? We collected cash. So cash, $540,000 is my revenue. Yes. Yes.
The long one example, like the 600 will not go into May, it will go into June, July, and August. It sounds like the income is separated out like 1 year working, but payment goes on for like one charge.
Okay, the question relates to lawnmower guy income. So let's deal with each of those separately. So lawnmower guy collects cash in May. Okay, so going to recognize revenue in June, July, and August. Can you buy that? I mean, are we okay with that? That makes sense? Because he's earning it in each of the months. So what happens in May is he's going to have cash increase and he's going to increase unearned revenue, which is a liability. And then in each of those months, he's going to reduce his liability and recognize revenue. Okay, so that's there. So then the question where we had an expense we incurred in December, and we paid it in, we incurred it in 2011, and we paid it in 2012, right? That was the question. We recognize the expense because we actually incurred the expense in December. We used the electricity in December, and that's when we're going to recognize the expense. Because so we've got revenue and we have expense. So the rule with revenue is when we earn it. So when did we do the work for it? The $600 we did in June, July, and August. Now expenses, we don't earn expenses. We incur them. So when did we incur the expense? Here we're saying we used the electricity in December, so that's when we're going to recognize it. You've got revenue on one hand and expense, and you've got a situation where one thing you're paying for ahead of time and one thing you're paying for later. It doesn't matter where the cash is. The expense or the revenue goes in the month in which you incurred or earned it, depending if it's expense or revenue. Is that okay? Okay. Okay, so revenues we collected, and the implication, if you see the word collected, there's cash involved there. Next, expenses totaled $440,000. Expenses totaled. That doesn't say anything about cash. But the next sentence, the related cash payments for $420,000. So we have the related cash payments of $420,000, giving us net income under the cash basis of $120,000. Or they're related to the period before. The question is that saying that we have expenses totaling $440,000 and related cash payments for $420,000? He asked if that $20,000 was being paid at a later date. Yes, maybe. We either paid the $20,000 at a later date, or we paid it before. We paid it in advance. So, but it's not during this period. Cash basis net income is basically a running total of your cash. So then we get into the accrual basis. Our accrual basis revenues, it tells us in the first sentence we earned revenues. So earned revenues are going to be the revenues that we recognize. So we have $530,000. My expenses, it tells me my expenses totaled $440,000. And then, so if I take the 530 and subtract the 440, I will end up with net income under the accrual basis of $90,000. Yes. Okay, the question, I have to repeat that for those that can't hear. The question, so let's say the first part again. Why does expenses, the 440 is bigger than the 420, and then revenues is less than the cash? Okay, let's back up. Let's talk about why those could be different. I'm going to deal with each of those separately. So we'll start with revenues. The question is, why is revenues different from cash? And they can be, in any situation, let's talk about revenues. We can collect cash before we earn it, like the lawnmower guy. He got $600 and then he earned it the next 3 months. So lawnmower guy would have revenues on account higher than what he collected if we were looking at May only. Okay, so in this situation, they earned revenues of $530. They collected $540 from customers. Now we can also have. Go ahead. Well, they haven't earned it, or it relates to something they were prepaid for last period. We don't know if it's because they collected money ahead of time or because they haven't earned it yet, because it doesn't tell us. It's just telling us, here's how much. They've gone through and calculated how much they've earned, and what they've earned is $530. They collected cash, so either they're collecting that extra $10,000 that's floating around there, that difference, either relates to monies they received for last year, where they did a job last year and weren't paid till this year, or people are paying ahead and they'll perform the service next year. So you can have cash coming in before or after you earn the revenue. Now moving on to the expenses, we could have exactly the same situation here. Their expenses, what they actually incurred was $440,000. Cash payments were $420,000. So either they owe for that $20,000, or some of the payments they made could be for expenses we incurred last year and then they still owe for others. We don't know from the information given. But the cash payments and the revenue are not really related. I mean, you can't, without more information, you don't know why. Now, we have, which basis measures net income better? That's going to be the accrual basis. Accrual basis, think about lawnmower guy. If we use cash basis for lawnmower guy, he's going to have a loss the 3 months he's actually working. Okay, so we have a question now about what happens if we fail to record a sale on account. I'm going to walk around and solicit answers, but the thing that I would tell you to do on this one is write out the journal entry for recording the sale on account. Okay? So look back in your notes. We did these. There's a standard journal entry for making what happens when we record a sale on account. This question's saying, so what happens if you don't make that journal entry? That's how you will answer this question. Can you switch the camera? Okay, I'm going to start with you. I'm not asking for the answer yet. We're going to start with the journal entry. So to record a sale on account, do you know that journal entry? I figured you would. If we have a sale on account, what are we going to debit and credit? Yes, we will debit accounts receivable and we will credit sales revenue, right? Yeah, okay. So that's a good thing to know. If we have a sale on account, we will debit accounts receivable, we will credit sales revenue. What type of account is accounts receivable? An asset. What kind of account is sales revenue? Revenue, right, equity revenue. Yeah, okay, see I'm answering for you. Okay, so we're saying if we don't record the sale on account, we are not going to increase assets. So if we don't increase assets, that means assets will be too low. And then the revenues will also be too low. So looking through our answers, the only one that makes any sense will be B. A can't be right because accounts receivable will not be increased. C can't be right because revenues will be too low. And D can't be right because revenues will be too low. So it has to be A. When you get these kind of questions, the first thing you need to do when it says, what happens if you don't do this? It's pull out your journal entry for that and then say, what's the impact or what kind of accounts these are. That debit credit handout that I gave you, it will list what type of accounts most accounts are. So if you have a running total of a running list of the journal entries, certainly making a sale on account is a journal entry that should be on your sheet. You should have sale on accounts, debit accounts receivable, credit, sales revenue. Another one you should have that we talked about last time or last week would be making a payment on account. If we make a payment on our account, we're going to credit cash and debit accounts payable. So we went over a whole list of those. I would have that on my sheet. So if you get a question that says, if you don't do this, this is a question you should be going, yay, hurrah, I can answer this. This is one that's very easy to answer. I look at what type of accounts I should have done to, and whether it was increasing or decreasing. And being able to walk through that is all on that debit credit handout as well. So if you have the journal entry, you can say, well, what am I doing here? What type of account is this? Is it increasing or decreasing? So that's that kind of question. Okay, I have to switch to a different slide. Do you not have any, do you not, okay, well, I'm not going to worry about it right now. Okay. Okay, so we've come to the end of what I want to do here. Do we have any questions? Chapter 4 homework is due this weekend. I would urge you to do those 2 homework problems. Skip ahead to Chapter 3 and do a couple of those, because next week you're going to have a fair amount of homework in Chapter 3. Also start working your way through study plan. You can do Chapters 1, 2, and 4 in study plan. Do not wait until the week of the exam to study. So, okay, have a nice weekend. I hope you don't have any more snow.